important to keep the dialogue going. There are so many things at stake in this relationship for these countries on the issues you mentioned, from climate to trade. There are some really difficult issues right now with China trade, particularly the administration's actions on electric vehicles coming in from China. But there's also some places where there's hope for collaboration, such as climate. President Biden has known Xi for a very, very long time. So I am actually encouraged to see that they're touching base, even if, as you said, there's not real tangible progress.
Well, and of course, this doesn't just happen at this highest level between the two presidents. The cabinet officials have been making their way kind of in rotation to visit China in person as well. The Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, will be doing so later this week, talking about a lot of the economic and trade, as you talk about parts of this relationship. What is most imperative in terms of the economic relationship between these two largest economies in the world right now?
Well, I think a lot of what you're going to see Secretary Yellen talking about is the overcapacity and production in China that is causing risks to the global economy, and also some of the trade practices that we've seen. There's a lot of subsidization of particular industries in the Chinese economy. There's a lot of non-market practices and policies. These are the kinds of things that are going to be on the agenda when Secretary Yellen goes later this week.
Well, and just specifically on trade policy, of course, we saw tariffs implemented during the prior administration, during the Trump administration, and that has not been reversed in this Biden administration. When we think about tariffs and kind of the idea of protectionism overall, is this really only likely to go in one direction from here, which is further protectionism, Sarah?
Well, I think what you've tried to see the Biden administration try and do is to really focus on industries where they are particularly concerned. Semiconductors, AI, things with high technology risks. So you've seen a lot of new actions from the Biden administration on export controls. You have, as you mentioned, seen tariffs kept in place, and that is one policy tool. But I think the Biden administration's notion of small yard, high fences requires a whole range of tools, again, export controls, as well as investing in some of our own industries here in the United States.
Well, of course, we're faced, though, with the question of whether we'll still be talking about a Biden administration come January 2025, or if we will once again be talking about a Trump administration. And we have heard a lot from former President Trump, presidential candidate Trump, about what he would like to do in terms of China policy, talking about the prospect of potentially 60% plus tariffs on all Chinese goods, especially when the messaging from the U.S. right now is intentionally that we are not decoupling, diversifying, friendshoring, whatever you want to call it. Could the same be said about what might happen under a future Trump administration, or are tariffs of that level essentially just an outright decoupling?
Well, President Trump has always been enamored of tariffs as a major policy tool, and we very much expect that a second Trump administration would use this tool not only, as you mentioned, with China, where they're talking about particularly high numbers, but also U.S. allies, Europe, Mexico, other places. This is something we saw in the first Trump administration, and we're very have a lot of conviction that it is something we would continue to see. 60% is a very, very large number that would certainly have a vast economic inflationary proposals. You could do some of that without the Congress, so it is a real risk. My guess is that they would come down a bit from this number, given the global economic implications, or at least focus it on particular sectors. But we very much believe that a second Trump term would have a lot of tariffs in many sectors and have some very important inflationary impacts to the economy.